The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 5. Into Battle. Chapter 3. I will go to the Empress, Tal declared as he stared into the red keystone. He could see Lokar in the center of the jewel. The small woman looked like she was treading water, her hands and feet in constant movement. Her spirit shadow, a hopping leaper beast, circled her, never stopping. They were both prisoners in the keystone, trapped there when the stone was unlocked. They could not be released except with Lokar's own sunstone, or the violet keystone of the Seventh Tower.
Good! Oh, good! Excellent!
Babbled Lokar.
To make sure we come out close to the chosen enclave, you must first fix an image of the place in your head. Then you'll need to hold that picture there as you recite the way to Aine and concentrate on the correct colours. You do know the way to Aine? Please, you must.
Of course I know, said Tal, though he didn't know how to transfer to a particular spot. He thought about it for a second. Of course he could do it. He was better at light magic now than most adult chosen. If he hadn't been, he would be dead by now. He had to pick the right part of the enclave for his arrival. They would have to be careful to avoid being seen. Since the day of ascension had just happened, all the chosen would be in Ainir. Presumably that would include Sushin. As the Dark Vizier, he was able to command any other chosen in the name of the Empress. There were also a lot of chosen who willingly followed Sushin, or were duped into obeying him. Probably none of them knew that Sushin was secretly a servant of the free shadows of Ainir, and that his real aim was to destroy the veil that protected the Dark World from the sun and from the shadows of Ainir. Mila thought Sushin was some sort of shadow who had taken on flesh, but Tal wasn't sure about that. Where do you think we should arrive? Tal asked.
Soon, snapped Lokar. Oh, where? Where? The rim of the crater, at night.
At night? Asked Tal.
You mean I can visualize a time as well? Yes, replied Lokar. Yes, 2 deep breaths. 1, 2... Where was I? Besides here, yes, within a day or so. I do not know what would happen if you tried to cross too far into Ainir's future.
Where do we go if it's not yet night in Ainir?
Who knows? Our bodies sleep here and our spirits arrive there. We will not notice if our spirits spend time somewhere in between. It doesn't matter.
Tal didn't like the thought of that, but he had decided.
Visualize, said Lokar. Hurry! Oh, darkness, take you! Think! Think of the enclave. Pick a spot where you've spent time that you know well. Remember it in detail. Paint a picture in your head.
Tal let his head fall back. Lokar's increasingly shrill voice dropped away to the distant buzz of a tunnel net. He thought of the chosen enclave. He saw it in his mind, imagined it as a storm shepherd might see it from high overhead. The vast volcanic crater, the rim rising up 1,000 stretches above the plain of thorns. On the inside of the rim, a lesser fall, only 500 or 600 stretches down to the lake that filled the crater. But this was no ordinary lake. It was not water, but a mixture of fine gray ash and millions upon millions of tiny, clear crystals. Strange creatures lived in the ash lake. Most were unknown, though some of the shallower regions had been netted over the years with the catch made to serve as spirit shadows back in the castle. Sushin had originally had a lake-dweller spirit shadow, a tall, thin creature with an armored shell and a snapping beak. But Sushin had a different spirit shadow now, another sign of his treachery and alliance with the creatures of Ainir. Chosen did not change their spirit shadows. Tal quickly concentrated, remembering details of the enclave. The Chosen in Ainir stayed in houses built on stilts across the lake of ash, houses joined by raised walkways that kept them safely out of the reach of the lake-dwellers. In the very center of the lake there was a real island, rather than a platform made by the Chosen. Protected by stone walls and sunstone wards, the island was the Empress's Ainirian residence. It had gardens and a palace. It was not open to other Chosen, and was not joined to the network of raised pathways and bridges. Tal thought about arriving on the Empress's island, but he had only seen it from a distance, from high on the crater wall. He couldn't visualize any details because he didn't know any. He also had better not arrive on a walkway or a house. It would be too easy to be seen. Lokar was right. The crater rim would be the best. But where on the crater rim? Tal remembered climbing up with his parents as a very young boy, before Gref was born. He remembered grizzling and complaining at the steepness of the path until his father picked him up and piggybacked him most of the way. But his clearest memory was from the year before. With a bunch of other boys, he had climbed to the Hanging Rock to watch some older chosen light diving. The Hanging Rock was a tongue of stone that projected from the crater rim, in toward the lake. It was at least 50 stretches long, a strange, seemingly unsupported platform that was perfect for light diving. If anywhere could be considered perfect for light diving, that is, it was a dangerous sport, frowned upon by the senior chosen. Any child who attempted it rather than a full chosen would automatically gain 4 deluminance, if they survived. 4 deluminance was more than halfway to the disgrace of demotion, the beginning of a slide that might end in red, or even the white robes of the underfolk. Light diving was simple enough. The chosen divers would weave themselves a rope of light, tie one end around their ankles and the other end to the anchor hole in the hanging rock. Then they would simply dive off, down toward the lake. If the light rope was made properly, they would plummet down about 2/3 of the way, then suddenly rebound and bounce up and down for a while. Once they'd come to a stop, it was usually a simple matter to shrink the rope and be drawn back up. If the rope wasn't properly made, the chosen diver might fall into the ash and drown, or get eaten by something. Sometimes, less fatally, but more embarrassingly, the light rope wouldn't shrink, and the diver would be left dangling upside down below the hanging rock until friends came to the rescue. The hanging rock would be ideal, Tal thought. He would time it so he arrived at dusk. Then he could sneak down the path at night and onto the network of bridges and walkways. There were some boats on the lake, and he would steal one of those to get to the Empress's island. Tal fixed the image of the hanging rock in his mind, with the red light of the setting sun just upon it. He could see the rock and the lake below, the crater wall stretching away to either side to circle around in the distance. It was all very clear in his head. Tal raised his sunstone and called forth the first of the colors that would begin his transfer. At the same time, he began to recite the way to Einir, his words and the colors from the stone mixing together. He felt the colors spread across his skin, felt the difference as red gave way to orange and then yellow. The inside of the stone sarcophagus faded away, to be replaced by swirling colors. Bright rainbows washed across Tal, blurring into each other as each new one passed. All the way through, he kept the image of the hanging rock in his head, with the sunlight just beginning to fall upon it. Tal was on his way to Einir. Whether he'd made a good decision or not, he had chosen his cards. Now, he would have to play the beast he had created.